What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Stand Your Ground. I'm your host, as always, Alex Bennison. I am joined by one half of the Mighty Whites podcast, Casey.
How are you, mate?
I am not too bad. I'm better. I've recovered from Wednesday, and I'm slightly hungover from last night, but we'll get there.
It's good to hear you'll make it through.
Although there's been no Premier League action this week, there's been two major games in the world of the top level and then some pretty important games in the playoffs in England. We might as well start with the one that I'm dreading talking about the most, which is the Europa League final. Man United won, Villarreal won, and Villarreal win 11-10 on penalties. Start with the first 90 minutes. First half, Villarreal go 1-0 up. Both me and you were playing five-a-side at the point where the first half was being played, so we didn't catch any of the first half. But have you seen the highlights of or the highlight of the goal?
I have, yeah. It's I don't know. I just enjoy any goal against Man United at this point, especially in a final.
To be fair, although Villarreal, they finished 7th in La Liga this year, Gerard Moreno has been in pretty decent form. He's got himself into the Spanish squad for the Euros. And it's a decent header. It's a decent finish. There was part of me thinking maybe De Gea could have done a bit more about it, but when it comes to...
We'll come on to that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about that. And then in the second half, it's a pretty scrappy goal. It's Cavani's goal. Shot is taken. I think it's Scott McTominay that takes the shot. It deflects a couple of times, lands right in front of Cavani for him to put it home into an open net. I've seen people say that Cavani is a clinical striker, which he is, but with them saying, "Oh, he's always in the right place at the right time." That could have been anybody. It was a bit of luck that it fell to him.
Yeah, he's the sort of player that you want around for things like that. Just a loose ball happens to bounce to, because the amount of times you ever see it in big games when you get something like that happens and it falls to a centre back who just has absolutely no idea what to do in that situation. It's always good to have someone clinical like Cavani around. I don't know if I was alone in this, but because Man U scored fairly early into the second half. I can't remember how long into it was. And at that point, I was sort of there thinking, well, here we go now. That Man U were going to kick on and put plenty of pressure on, but sort of like the Champions League final, didn't you only end up with about 2 or 3 shots on target?
Well, this is adding added time as well. There was only 3 shots on target in the full game, 2 of which were goals. But there was 26 shots that did take place between the 90 minutes and the 120 minutes. So nobody was...
I'm starting to think Cavani's not that clinical.
Yeah, there was nobody that really brought the shooting boots. And I know it's going to keep getting brought up, but Bruno Fernandes going missing in the big game. It's already been mentioned quite a lot that he doesn't seem to perform well against the big 6 in the Premier League, and then it got to this final and he just didn't seem effective. I don't know whether it was Villarreal just put Etienne Capoue on him and just went, right, that's it. Keep him out the game and we'll nullify Man U's attacking threat. But even Rashford didn't look clinical. He didn't look match fit, to be honest. And he was one of the players that seemed to last for the 120 minutes. He didn't sub Rashford, which I thought was a bit of a strange move for him.
Were you a little bit, or was it? I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. What did you think of the starting lineup when you saw it? Was that as you expected it to be?
See, with Martial out injured, I do. I expect Rashford, Bruno, Cavani, and Greenwood. But to play Pogba and McTominay as your two holding mids, I think is asking for trouble, because I don't think that's Pogba's most effective role. And we've seen it towards back end of the season. Him playing out seems to be on the left-hand side of an attacking three. He seems to be a lot more clinical, being further up the pitch. And I don't know what Solskjaer's idea was to drop him so far back, especially in such a big game. But I would have much preferred to have seen Fred and McTominay start in this defensive roles, and probably see Greenwood drop to the bench and have Rashford out on the right. I think that would have been my preferred starting role.
Yeah, that I think that's pretty much what I was thinking as well. I was quite surprised that Pogba wasn't in that attacking role for this, because, like you say, as Villarreal are a decent side, but they've just finished 7th in the league. They're not, they're not the best team you've come up against this season. So I was quite surprised to see you guys playing Pogba with that deeper role.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Man United's original starting 11, the two players that really stood out were Luke Shaw. I think Luke Shaw had a really good game. And I think Scott McTominay had a really good game in the middle of midfield. But I think it's because he had to do a lot more defensive work trying to cover for Pogba. I think he struggled with that.
Yeah. If I'm saying this, if I was a Man United fan, I think this would have been a team where I'd have liked to have seen a more attacking impetus from Man United than was actually shown in the end.
Yeah, I think there was parts in the second half after we got that first goal where we were playing great football up until the final third, and it just didn't seem to click. And it's one of those things in finals. It does happen. Sometimes you do just end up with an unfortunate day at the office, I guess, for the strikers, where it just doesn't fall for you. But I mean, hats off to Villarreal. They defended really well, and the two halves that we had of extra time, they looked the better side.
And Juan Foyth adds to the list of Spurs players who've won a trophy since Spurs last did. I think that list is now nearly at 50-odd players. Yeah,
to see him and Etienne Capoue. Well, Foyth's going back, isn't he? We're on the odd loan, so he's going back to Spurs with a Europa League winners' medal, and Spurs have won nothing.
He's going back to Spurs to play in the Europa Conference League. Oh, no, he's not, is he? Wait, Spurs didn't make it, did they?
No, they finished 8th, so...
Yeah. So he's basically qualified for the Champions League, and now no Europe for him.
I'm trying to think of who it is. Oh no, it is Spurs finished 7th, so they've got the Conference League place.
So that man's qualified for the Champions League and has dropped down, not even just to the Europa League again, but down once more.
I have got a question about the Conference League. Of what day are they playing those games on? Is it going to be Thursday, the same as the Europa League?
I think it's also Thursdays.
Yeah, I couldn't see it working if they were going to try and push the Europa Conference, like play all the Champions League games on a Tuesday, all the Europa League games on a Wednesday, and all the Conference Leagues on a Thursday. I just think it wouldn't work.
No, it's fully well designed as the third tier of European competition.
Yeah. So, what we'll talk about the first game to take place on the Saturday, and pretty.
Are we not discussing that penalty shootout now?
I tried to gloss over that. I wanted to get past that as quick as possible.
I will make a brief defense of David De Gea before going entirely against everything I'm about to say. This obviously the stat came up about him that he's now faced 35 penalties he's faced without saving them.
Yeah.
11 of them were in that shootout. And in all fairness to him, the goalkeeper he was playing against only saved one of the 11. So it's not as if his record was much better in that shootout. But that goalkeeper could also take a hell of a penalty.
Yeah, he absolutely rifled that. There were a couple of really, really well-taken penalties. I think Twanzebe took a really good penalty, and I was cringing as he stepped up to take that penalty. I really didn't think he was going to score. And Fred having the absolute bollocks on him to just rifle it into the top corner.
I love seeing a penalty like that when you're not in the original 5 and you've got the confidence anyway to go, no, I'm putting this in the top corner. And then you do. Like, fair play to you.
Yeah. Especially for a player as well who wasn't even in the starting lineup. He only came on in extra time.
Yeah. There were some great penalties in there. It's one of those things where, as much as people will have a go at David De Gea, realistically, goalkeepers should never be saving penalties. It's a free shot on goal from 12 yards out. You should always score. It's just amazing that in this case that none of the penalties were off target.
The problem I have with that is I was watching De Gea getting ready to save the penalties, and he was diving before they'd even finished the run-up. Like, he was leaning towards the side he was going to go to. I think out of the 11 penalties he faced, probably only went the right way about 3 times. He didn't strike me with confidence, even not putting trying to take his own penalty where he basically rolled it into a corner.
There was a brief moment when I got really annoyed with him when I think he was time wasting around penalty 7 or 8, where I think the Villarreal player had already placed the ball and was stepping up. And I was just kind of thinking, well, look, if he's not in his goal, just let him take the penalty. It's not the penalty taker's fault that he's not in goal. Just let him pass it in as David De Gea starts sprinting across the penalty. I'm like, no, I'm getting back.
He probably had more chance of saving it than he did if he was stood there. Yeah, so congratulations to Villarreal. It does mean that there'll be 5 La Liga teams in the Champions League next year. Them, Atletico, Real, Barca, and Sevilla will be in the Champions League. Although it wouldn't have mattered if an English side had won the Europa League, because our 4 basically were confirmed whether Man United won the Europa League or not. I'm still good. I still wish we'd have won that. Solskjaer's tried for a year and a half to get us to a final. Got to all the semi-finals and couldn't get to a final. And then his first final and he loses it. I did feel bad for him, but at the same time, he doesn't strike you as a manager that really G's up his players, does he? Like, can you imagine him going in and giving you like the hairdryer treat?
No, especially not with that accent. That weird Norwegian Manc blend.
So we'll move on to the Saturday games. The first one was there was a place in the Premier League at stake. Brentford 2, Swansea 0. Finally, Brentford, after 4 times of being in the playoff finals, got themselves into the Premier League.
Yeah, there's an argument that over that time they've probably been in the top 2 teams in the division. Like, they've been fantastic that whole time. Last year they had the absolute meltdown where second place was open to them, and I think they lost in the last 5 minutes to Barnsley, which also kept them up and forced them into the playoffs. But this season they've played really well. They've obviously done a very good job replacing Benrahma and Watkins, and Ivan Toney's had a fantastic season for them. As a performance, it's one of those where it was pretty much done within the first 20 minutes. You know, they got 2-0 ahead pretty early on, And at that point, it's just a case of you don't take any risks that you don't need to, don't expose yourself. And if you do that, you'll probably come out on top.
Yeah, don't throw everyone up for a corner and leave no one defending.
No, hopefully they learnt that lesson.
Yeah, I was quite happy with this result. No disrespect to Swansea or Swansea's fans. Like, I'm just happy to see a different team come up into the Premier League. I know it's been a while since Swansea was in the Premier League, but it's nice to see a fresh team. And I was happy for Ivan Toney because he's obviously been absolutely outstanding this season, breaking the Championship goal scoring record. But I was always also happy for Mbeumo as well, because out of the front three that Brentford had last season, and they were classed as the best attacking front three in the Championship, both Watkins and Benrahma got the chance to step up and go into the Premier League, and he kind of just got left behind. So it'll be nice to see what Mbeumo can do in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's quite funny for me. Like, I would have been quite happy with any of the teams coming up. You know, Barnsley I would have quite liked to have seen come up as a relatively local team, and as a team that's had its struggles since they were last in the Premier League. Swansea, I'm a big fan of Mark Cooper there. He's Steve Cooper, their manager. I like the story of the managers that kind of gone abroad and then come back, and they've had some success. Even if he does look like a bit of a slack George Yokel, he's quite a good coach. Bournemouth would have been nice because I wanted to see Johnny Woodgate come back. Especially for the way he was treated at Middlesbrough, it'd been great for him to come in and take them up. And then obviously there's Pontus Jansson at Brentford, who will always have a soft spot for, because he was kind of, as Leeds were picking up and getting better, he was one of the first kind of building blocks of that before Bielsa came in. So it's nice for him to get his shot at the Premier League as well.
What did you make of his interview after the game, where he said that he'd taken some of the coaching that he'd been taught by Bielsa under that one season at Leeds to Brentford, and that the coaching staff had listened to him, and that the players had got used to trying to play that Bielsa style away?
I think, to paraphrase Pontus, we all fucking love Leeds is basically what that interview was. It was quite funny that he spent a lot of time talking about Leeds and Bielsa. Me and Jack went to watch Leeds v Arsenal in the FA Cup last year, and Pontus came to that game and was roundly cheered and applauded for while he was there, and kind of made himself known. So I think he's aware that he's still liked in Leeds. We still like him. I'm never sure whether to I don't really know whether to believe that much has been implemented. Like, I dare say there will have been questions from Thomas Frank, isn't it, their manager?
Yeah.
I think, I dare say I wouldn't be surprised if there was questions about things, about the way Leeds play and that. But, Brentford have had a fairly solid identity and style of football for the last few years now, and I can't imagine it's changed all that much this year.
No, attacking wise, I wouldn't imagine it will have changed much. And to be honest, if you did ask Pontus Jansson, so what is Bielsa's tactics? Run. Just run.
Just run. Move.
Never stop running. Before we do talk about the Champions League, we'll talk about the other playoff game that has taken place. And I have got a banner. I did already have Brentford on there, but congratulations to Blackpool as well, who've got themselves back into the Championship. They've beaten Lincoln 2-1 today in the playoff final. They went 1-0 down in the first minute with an own goal, Turton putting it into his own net from a cross, and then Kenneth Dougal with 2 goals, one in the first half and one in the second half. Both lovely finishes, pretty much exactly similar, both placed into the bottom left-hand corner. But yeah, congratulations to Blackpool for getting themselves in the Championship. The Championship on paper, I was having this conversation yesterday. This season's Championship looked like one of the toughest for battles for promotion, with people like Norwich, Bournemouth, Brentford, Watford. Watford and Swansea as well, even playing quite well. Then the dark horses of Barnsley coming out of nowhere. Reading had a really good start to the season and they fell away. Like, the Championship looked really, really tough this season, and I think it's going to be the same next year, with maybe not with Sheffield United, but with Fulham going down. I think West Brom might have a bit of a rebuild in the summer. So I think they've let 15 players go since they've been relegated. So
I mean, Sheffield United would be interesting now that because they've brought in Slavica Djukanovic, haven't they? So which I think is a good appointment for them. I'm a little bit disappointed they didn't keep Heckingbottom, getting him play a whip ball and a way out ball. But apparently it wasn't meant to be. But yeah, I think it's been a smart appointment on their part.
Yeah, they didn't want relegating again. But I think it'll be a tough ask of Blackpool to stay up. But we'll see. There's been stranger things that happen in football, and it's just a nice day for Blackpool fans to enjoy. And obviously, with it being the bank holiday, they'll get their little parade on Monday with all the players in their open-top bus around Blackpool.
Yeah, it's quite nice to see a success story for a club that, bearing in mind they were in the Premier League 10 years ago or so. And at first you kind of thought they're doing the smart thing here. They're essentially banking the money, getting a couple of players in, but they're banking the money and kind of preparing to go back down. Little did we kind of realise at that point that the owners were pocketing all that money and taking the money out of the club, and they ended up dropped down to League Two. So it's quite nice to see them have some success now. I think they were bought out by, I think originally a supporters trust, and I don't know if someone else has taken over since. But it's one of the things as a football fan. No matter how much I dislike Man United or Chelsea or Millwall, or we could list teams all day that I hate, but you never want to see clubs financially mishandled like that or taken advantage of, because no one wants what's happened to Bury or any club like Chester or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, it'd be really funny if Man United got relegated, but I don't want them to be stripped apart and go into administration and never exist again. It's quite nice to see that after a rough few years that the Blackpool fans get their day.
Yeah, it's very similar to what happened to Southampton very early on in the Premier League, the early 2000s. They just fell away. They went right down the pyramid and they worked themselves back up, and now they are an established team in the Premier League. Maybe for the first half of the season, not the second half. We'll forget about the second half. But yeah, maybe we've got another one of those stories on his hands, and fingers crossed Blackpool might re-emerge and be a Premier League team at some point in the future. But don't throw money on it for it next season.
No.
So on to the main thing that's happened yesterday. An all-English final in Porto. Champions League final took place, and it was Pep versus Thomas Tuchel. City versus Chelsea. And Chelsea come away 1-0. I'm happy with this because I'm a Man United fan and I'm smoking. I just want it to be the one thing that City don't win, so that we've got that over them.
It was, I think the nicest way to put this would be, it was a tactical battle. The not so nice way would be, for a neutral, it wasn't the best game of football to watch.
The first 15 minutes with City really pressing Chelsea, and I think it was the first 30 seconds, they got them down into their half and they'd won a throw-in by the corner flag, and it just looked like Chelsea were panicking, but they settled themselves into their game. They started playing those long balls up to Timo Werner, who half the time managed to stay onside, the other half the time was just offside. But I think Werner had a decent game up until he tried to have a shot, and which seems to have been him all season. He seemed to be able to take the ball down. He kept kept it under control, and I think he did give John Stones particularly a few headaches in this game.
Yeah, I think there was the chance and it was one of those moments that kind of made you see that he's a man that's probably a little bit nervous or lacking confidence. I think it's one he takes it down really well on the chest, and he seems to be turning to shoot before he's hit the ground somehow, and he just needs to take the touch it, and probably could have just pulled it back, but I thought it was very interesting seeing Man City's lineup, because the running joke now is, who would have thought defensive midfielders and strikers were so important? This false nine system they've gone for was a bit of an odd choice. And it felt to me a little bit as if Pep had overthought everything.
Yeah, it did very feel like, when you looked at the team on paper, that they were playing a 4-0-6. And I know Gundogan's he's had a very good season scoring goals. He looked to be the most defensive person out of that full starting 11 in the midfield. But there's a stat that has come up today, and it is Pep Guardiola has played either Fernandinho or Rodri in 59 of 60 games this season. And the Champions League final is the first time neither of them have featured in the starting 11.
Yeah, it seemed. I'll say now I'm not a fan of the false nine, and I don't know whether that's just because I'm a traditionalist and a striker, so I like to see someone up there leading the line, and even if it's someone like Patrick Bamford or Cavani, who your box to box striker as you kind of call him, but it never quite works for me. Does that, and the one thing I thought Chelsea did very well, especially once they got in front with that system, they always ensured that there was that back three stayed pretty tight, and N'Golo Kante was just there to kind of protect them as well, just covering about 5 different positions when they needed to. The fullbacks tucked in really well, and there was very rarely did you see a gap of more than about 5 or 6 yards between the defenders and the midfielders. They really didn't give them a lot of room to operate in.
No, and it's strange thinking that, I don't know whether it was just me or maybe a bit of Frank Lampard not playing Kante as much. But there was part of me thinking, he's falling away. He's not being the same defensive midfielder. He's not getting the game time. Is he falling out of favour at Chelsea? And then Tuchel's come in, and it seems to be business as usual for Kante. He just seems to cover every single blade of grass. And I think without Kante in that Chelsea side, the final's probably a different result. I think Chelsea can really owe this win. Although Kai Havertz taking that goal very well, putting it round Ederson's one of the major talking points, Kante being in that Chelsea side is probably the reason why they won this game.
Yeah. He's the man's a machine, but he is just everywhere, just protecting those 3 central defenders. And there was obviously unfortunate injuries on both sides. Silva had to go off fairly early on with an injury, and he couldn't carry on. And then second half, you had Rudiger just assaulting Kevin De Bruyne and forcing him off. As it now turns out, he's got a fracture in his nose and a fractured orbital bone as well. I don't think it was a red card. I think it's for Rudiger. That is, I think it's cynical playing as much as you're stepping across. You know what you're doing. I just think it's an unfortunate incident that he's also smashed De Bruyne's face in.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, the player doesn't come out with an injury there. He has just been unfortunate that he has caught him in the face. But it is a big loss for City in that second half, but it's also possibly going to be a big loss for Belgium at the start of the Euros, because it does look like De Bruyne is going to miss at least the first game. with that injury. Depends whether his orbital fracture does need surgery or whether it's just something that he can put a mask on and play with.
Yeah. And again, as we kind of mentioned, I found City's lineup sort of from the midfield and forwards was very confused. You had Gundogan, who's been on fantastic form, making those late runs, and getting quite a few goals the back end of this season. He was forced to play a lot deeper. I don't think De Bruyne was as involved as he would be, and you can see now why the talk is around City going after either Haaland or Kane. Like they need that, and because what we were all looking for, probably not Man United fans as such, but I think what most of us were looking for was Sergio Aguero comes on with 10 minutes left and gets the equaliser. We basically wanted him to have what Didier Drogba had 10 years ago with Chelsea. I think that's the story everyone wanted, which would have been nice. But honestly, when he came on with 15 minutes left, I can't remember his name being mentioned.
No, it did. It seemed strange for him to start the game with no striker and then finish the game with both the strikers on the pitch. I would have thrown Aguero on before throwing Jesus on. I think they had Aguero through the middle and playing your two wingers as Sterling and Mahrez would have worked a lot better than trying to play those two up top together. I'm not going to discredit Jesus because I think he's a good striker, but I don't think he's at City's level, and it's been a shame because he's had a few seasons there. And when he first came to City, it looked like he'd hit the ground running, and he was going to be absolutely mind-bogglingly good, and we were going to see City dominate with him at the forefront for loads of seasons. But he seems to have fallen away, and I think maybe City, if they do want Haaland or they want Kane, will probably look to offload Jesus.
And this means absolutely nothing in football, but Gabriel Jesus always looks like he's worried he's left the freezer door open. Like he's just got this look of mild concern on his face, like, oh, I forgot to lock the back gate. Like he's just not a confident-looking man. I'm sure he is, but he just never looks it. Like if I saw him stepping up to take a penalty, I'd just look and go, "Nah, not him. He's missed."
That was me with 6 of Man United's penalty takers. Yeah, nice for Kai Havertz as well. The interview after the game turned around to him and said, "Oh, you are Chelsea's most expensive signing ever. How do you feel about winning the Champions League in your first season?" He just turned around and went, "I don't give a fuck. I've just won the fucking Champions League." And asked for the Quetta next to him, going absolutely fucking ape shit.
It's what you want.
BT,
I love it whenever, because still one of my favourite interviews is Luciano Becchio when he was at Leeds, being interviewed straight after the game when he'd scored the winner against Middlesbrough. And he kind of slipped through that it was like, and what do you think about the goal? He's like, fucking unbelievable. And it kind of snuck through. I think you had to properly hear it. Otherwise you'd been like, okay, whatever. No disguising this one.
Yeah, pretty much like Pontus did with that one. Where, what did you think of the game? Well, it was shit. But yeah, congratulations.
It's just the honesty you want from players, isn't it?
Yeah. So congratulations to Chelsea and congratulations to Thomas Tuchel. He becomes the third German manager to lose a final and then win a final the very next year. Means Pep is still waiting to try and win that Champions League with Man City as well. And they become the 8th team to lose a final in their lose the Champions League final in their debut in the final.
Yeah, that's about how it should be. You shouldn't win your first one. You've got to really want it. So
we've got a few things to talk about. We've got the Euros that are coming up now because finally domestic football has finished. We've finished with the European competitions and we've finished with the leagues now. It is all eyes towards the delayed European Euros. But I did want to talk to you about this kind of manager roller coaster we're having at the moment this summer, because everyone seems to be leaving and just joining whoever the fuck they want. It started with. Go on.
I was having a conversation with someone about this about a week ago, and say honestly, like, I don't know where Spurs go, because at that point it pretty much seemed like all the managers seemed set for next season. Like, there've been some appointments obviously made internationally, and kind of obviously Bayern were set up for the future, but we're kind of looking like everyone seems pretty settled now, and then just the last week is just, like you say, it's just been people who've just gone, I've had enough, I'm leaving now, and it has just set off this absolute chain reaction of managers just doing whatever they feel like, and Spurs looking now thinking, God, there might be someone out there for us. It might be Pochettino, who hasn't left.
It's strange looking at Serie A's table. If you take the top 9 teams, only 2 have still got the managers that they finished with the season last week. Inter, obviously, this chain reaction kind of started with Inter. Conte just decided that he'd had enough, wanted to leave, and has left Inter. So Inter have decided to take Lazio's manager of Simeone Inzaghi, which he didn't light up the Serie A. I mean, I think he's had a few jobs now there, and he's not really lit anything on fire. Lazio finished 6th this season. Do you think that's a knee-jerk reaction, or do you think they had him lined up for a bit?
It's a strange one, because you'd think in a season where you've kind of finally won the league and broken the stranglehold of Juventus, you probably have your pick of a fair few man. I know Serie A is not what it used to be, but the Inter job's still a big job. You'd be going in as defending champions. So yeah, you'd probably maybe want a touch more ambition than that.
Yeah, it did strike me as a very strange appointment. Maybe I've not watched enough Serie A football. Maybe he has the right tactics, but Lazio just didn't have the right players. And maybe with Inter's caliber of players, his tactics will work. But I thought it was a very strange signing. But then to stick with Serie A, Pirlo gets sacked after 1 season at Juve. They finished 4th. They did get Champions League in the end. They did win the domestic cup there, but not winning the league really just put the nail in the coffin for Pirlo. He was on his way out, and they've brought Allegri back in as their new manager as well. Do you think going backwards and going and getting a manager that you've already had is a good step for this Juve side?
No, I think the issue that Juve are going to have is one, Ronaldo doesn't seem too happy with that move, and I suppose when you are as big as Ronaldo is, you do have a lot of sway and the ability to kind of say, "Listen, I'm not putting up with this." Yeah, it's one of those where certainly in my time as a Leeds fan, there's managers I would have liked to have seen come back, but realistically, I don't think you should ever go back. I think for the most part, most managers leave for a reason, and typically it's because they've not done good enough, or they've moved on to something else. And kind of going back smacks of, oh well, this didn't work out, but I'll come back and I'll have another go. But no, I think, and especially with how he did first time around, the best you can do is match that. You're probably not going to beat what he achieved.
Yeah, he's got to hope that he gets himself to the Champions League final and wins the league next season, or else it's been a failure.
Yeah.
And then Zidane walked out on Real. Talk about not doing the same things as your first time round as manager. It did. did seem strange to me for him to bring Zidane back in for him after him just basically saying, "Yeah, I've done what I need to do at Real. I'm going to leave," and then they brought him back in again for a second time. They've not really been able to patch the hole that Ronaldo left. You would have thought with the amount of money that they've got, they'd have been able to bring somebody in. And I know Eden Hazard was meant to be that person, but obviously injuries and maybe a bit of a lack of fitness has really derailed his career. But I can't see who. I know Conte has been linked with going to Real, but I don't know what he can do with that Real side. Like, he did it with Chelsea. I get he did it with Chelsea. He came in with a side that had finished like 5th or 6th and took them and won the Premier League the very next season. He's done it with Inter not won a title in 10 years. The very first season he's got them back and they've won the league. Do you think he could do the same with Real?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for both them and Barcelona. That the last few weeks, a lot of people have kind of spoken about the financial situations there, and which is why you're now looking at a world where Barcelona are signing Sergio Aguero on a free transfer, Real Madrid are signing David Alaba on a free transfer. So, with him just leaving Bayern Munich now, they're not going out spending big money on players because they just can't afford to right now. But the problem certainly Real Madrid have got, and it's very odd that we are looking at European Championships where there is going to be no Real Madrid players in that Spain squad. First time that's ever happened. Is that they're not even producing young players like they used to. And that's what they need to really turn around now, because my concern would be if their finances don't improve, and this goes for Barcelona as well, that they're going to turn into a lot of the Serie A clubs who are very reliant on players in their 30s coming in on, probably not spending the big money transfer fees, but getting older players in that have got good records. But you look at the players between Madrid and Barcelona they still have on their books, and you just think, how much is someone like Sergio Ramos getting paid at this point? How much is Leo Messi getting paid? How much are they paying still for Gareth Bale to not play for them? It's madness.
You can see this smack of desperation when David Alaba signed a 5-year contract at 415k in euros a week, which is absolutely ridiculous for a player that a couple of seasons ago they were saying had got too slow to play left back, so he transitioned to be a centre back. Easy for a 5-year contract to tie him down for that long really does smack of, oh God, we really don't know what we're going to do. And we might see in the next few years people like Sevilla, Villarreal, obviously Atletico, who've just won the league, probably taking over Barca and Real. And if they don't improve either the teams or if they improve the finances.
Yeah, it's a very good opportunity for Atletico to kind of put their foot down in the Liga for a couple of years and establish themselves as not just the third team in that league. Yeah, it's always quite nice. I've never had particularly strong affiliations either way with Spanish football. But we all quite like to see, especially in a league as that's been dominated by two teams. It'd be really nice to see someone like Atletico Madrid come in and sort of take over there with a younger team, a much cheaper side, and really establish themselves. And as we've seen also this year, you've seen a few of the smaller teams up there. Sevilla have had, it's now, what is it, five Europa League wins in 11 years. So it'd be quite nice for them to kind of push up there more. I think Real Sociedad were up there for a chunk of this season. So yeah. It'd be quite nice to see a bit of competition up there.
Yeah, and then the one league that hasn't been competitive this season has been the Bundesliga. with Bayern Munich, they've come in, they've sniped Leipzig's manager. Nagelsmann's coming in as their head coach for next season, because it looks as if Bayern's coach this season is going to be taking the Germany job after the Euros. So with Haaland's big transfer fee and what do they call it, release clause up into summer of 2022, do you think they'll cash in on that and have to properly rebuild to be able to see some sort of competitive nature in the Bundesliga for the next couple of seasons?
Yeah, that's going to be the thing for them now. It's going to be so hard to replace someone like him, and I think it's unfortunate because I think kind of everyone knew getting into that it was only ever going to be a short-term deal. It was fantastic that Dortmund were able to get a player of his quality in, and it's very strange to say this at a club of Borussia Dortmund stature, but this was always going to be a stepping stone onto what I now would presume is either going to be PSG, Manchester United, or Manchester City. You know, I can't really see any other clubs competing with that.
Yeah, and I think if you are going to do a stepping stone, don't look towards Man United, because I think if he does just want to join a club who are going to win trophies, it is going to be either PSG or Man City at this point. I think Man U are too far in a transition period, even with the amount of money that we've spent, are still in a transition period as to we don't really know what we need or how to play, although we've had a better season this season.
Man, can you imagine a team with Mbappe and Haaland and Neymar? That's a ridiculous front three.
So, final thing to talk about ahead of the Euros. We've got 2 friendlies coming up. We've got one against Austria. I think that's a Thursday at 8 p.m. and then we're playing a Sunday game against Romania at 5 p.m. We've got a 33-man squad that's been named. We all thought we were just going to get the 26-man squad. No, Southgate has decided he wants to see an extra 9 people, whether they're going to make it to the squad or not. I've got the full list here. We'll go through goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, forwards, and we'll basically say who we think is going to miss out in the actual 26-man squad. Obviously, you're only going to take 3 goalkeepers, but the 4 that he has named is Dean Henderson, Sam Johnson, Jordan Pickford, and Aaron Ramsdale. I think it's going to be pretty unanimous that we think Ramsdale is the one that misses out ahead of the Euros.
Yeah, I can't say they've been much surprised about that one.
Defensively, we've got John Stones, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kyle Walker, Tyrone Mings, Reece James, Connor Cody, Ben Chilwell, Ben Godfrey, Kieran Trippier, and Ben White. 2 call-ups there for we've got Ben Godfrey and Ben White, who are uncapped players. I know part of you, the little soft spot for Ben White while he had his season at Leeds and bring you up into the Premier League. You won't want to not see him in the Euros, but do you think he has it?
And the most important thing is that his bromance with Calvin Phillips has been picked up for a little while anyway. The one thing I think we spoke about this last time, because I think we just missed out before they announced the defenders, but England's central defenders, I honestly think you've got Stones and Maguire, and then it falls off a cliff in terms of the quality after those 2. I don't think that. Yeah. But I also think it's unfortunate. Like, I don't think Ben Godfrey's had a particularly good season. I don't think Connor Cody's been fantastic this year. And I'm glad Ben White's got the call-up. But, I genuinely think there was an argument for Lewis Dunk being involved in this squad. And maybe not taking him to the tournament. But the one thing you'd have to say about Brighton is that actually for a team that's been as low down the table as they have, defensively, they've actually been quite good. Wolves have been pretty poor, this whole year. Tyrone Mings, I think, is decent, and one of the things I'll always give him, he's a fantastic athlete, and he does give you a bit of flexibility as someone who can play left back as well. But it's a tough one looking through that list of players. I think Ben Godfrey goes home. I could see Kieran Trippier not being picked. As much as he's played, he's not a better. He's in no way comparable to Luke Shaw or Ben Chilwell at left back. And I think Reece James, at the moment, will have played himself into being the first choice right back or right wing back. So I could see him being sent home as well.
Well, I do think Kieran Trippier has a shout for being our starting right wing back. I think this will be his last tournament for England, but he has had a decent season in La Liga. He has played for Atletico, who have won the league over there. So maybe that's the argument for him going. I always thought that they were going to cut Reece James, and to me, it's between him and Trent, which sounds really strange because you think Trent was the Premier League winning, Champions League winning right back and looked like he was going to be the future England right back for the next 5-6 years. But Reece James last night had a really good game for Chelsea. He played that wing back spot as well, so it showed that he could get up and down. And he does have a good final product. He's got a good cross on him. He's got a good eye for a pass, which is the one thing that Wan-Bissaka lacks as a right back. Defensively, he's great, but at the right back, I think he struggles to get up the pitch and do something creative. I still think it will be Reece James that does get cut. I think he'll be very unfortunate, but I think it will be the last time we see both Trippier, and I even think it'll be the last time we see Kyle Walker at a major tournament for England. And I think our right backs going forward will end up being Trent, Reece James, and Wan-Bissaka. But yeah, I do agree. I do think Ben Godfrey's worked well in that Everton side, and it's nice to see him get a call up. And I hope that he does impress, because I reckon both him and Ben White will get a game each in this thing. But I don't think either of them will go. To be honest, I don't even think Conor Cody probably should go. But it does depend on what Harry Maguire's injury is like.
Yeah. I think Conor Cody goes because he's been involved in the England setup most of this season. So I'd be very surprised if he missed out now. We should also say that we were I think we chatted about it last time, no Eric Dyer in this squad at all.
Yeah, there was part of me that went, oh, thank God he's not going. And there was also part of me that were going, oh, it's a very fresh-faced squad, isn't it?
Yeah, I was a little bit upset. I texted Jack when they put the team out, because it also listed all the dates of birth. There is not a single player born in the 80s in that team now. And it really makes me think I might have to consider international retirement.
I mean, there's still the San Marino games. You can get there.
Well, that's the dream.
Yeah, so midfield-wise, without Eric Dyer, we've got Mason Mount, Declan Rice, Jordan Henderson, Jude Bellingham, Calvin Phillips, Jesse Lingard, and James Ward-Prowse. It does look weird seeing them. They put the club that they play for next to the name, and seeing Jesse Lingard, and it's saying Man United in brackets and not saying West Ham.
Yeah.
The final two, though, for me, are the two that probably do miss out. I do think Lingard and I think Ward-Prowse might miss out in the midfield.
Yeah, it looks like Calvin Phillips is going to be fine with his shoulder injury. This is actually quite... This group of players, I think it is quite hard to choose between. Because I think James Ward-Prowse is the best thing about Southampton at the moment, and Jesse Lingard has obviously been in brilliant form for West Ham. Bellingham's been fantastic at Dortmund. You've got Mason Mount, who I think he's just getting better and better every week. Declan Rice, key part of that West Ham team. You know, I think because he's captain, he gets in. Would I have had Henderson in this team with how long he's been out? I'm not entirely sure. And then obviously Calvin Phillips, who's the best player in the world.
I think Jordan Henderson's one of those players that, because he's a 26-man squad, it really helps him. He's someone that you probably need to take as a figurehead for the locker room. You know, someone who can just bring the squad morale up. Someone who's been there, he's done it. He's been in the Champions League finals. He's been in the tough games in the Premier League. He's even been there for the massive cup run that we had in 2018, and we were on the brink of that final. Still daydream about that Kieran Trippier free kick. But I think he's someone that he's lucky he got his fitness back to get on the bench at Liverpool in time for this squad.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, I pretty much agree with that entirely. I think he is a senior player in that squad. You know, I think between him and like he's one of the oldest players between him and Kyle Walker, I think. So those will be like the senior internationals in there. So I do think there's definitely a role for him to play, but I do think having the extra players, it does benefit him.
Yeah, and the forwards, we went quite heavy-handed with the forwards, and I was quite shocked at this, the amount compared to the amount of midfielders that we've taken. But we've got Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Raheem Sterling, Calvert-Lewin, Foden, Jack Grealish, Mason Mount, Ollie Watkins, Jadon Sancho, and Saka.
Well, I think you know my first issue with that list of players
is that we've taken Ollie Watkins and not taken Patrick Bamford.
I can understand him taking Dominic Calvert-Lewin ahead of him. Calvert-Lewin's had a couple of good years now in the Premier League. He's very much an established Premier League striker. But as for two players that came into the league at the same time, the numbers aren't comparable. Patrick Bamford is head and shoulders had a much better season than Ollie Watkins has. You know, he's got 17 goals in his first full season, 7 assists as well. So again, in terms of the strikers, there's again only Harry Kane that scored more and assisted more. I think his pressing numbers are better than Ollie Watkins. I just do not know what Bamford could have done to get in that squad.
Yeah, he's very harsh on Patrick Bamford.
I'm not saying Bamford would have gone to the tournament, but I find the inclusion of Watkins ahead of him odd.
I think Bamford would have been one of those players. He would have really benefited from playing that game. In fact, I would have stuck him up top against Romania and just let's see what he can do. 17 goals this season is incredible. The second top scorer as an Englishman in the Premier League this season.
And joint fourth overall. Because I think there's a lot of people, when you say that, I'll think, there'll be a few players in between him and Kane, though. No, he's joint fourth with Son. You know, he's in very good company.
Yeah, and it's not exactly like it's nobodies that are above him. It's Salah, Kane, and Bruno that are above him. So it's not like it's stiff, crap competition that's above him. It's the top scorers that have been there or thereabouts in the Premier League for the past 4 seasons. I do think it's very harsh for Southgate to not include him. My only thought is Watkins is younger and he's probably going to be around the England system more than what Patrick Bamford is, because I'm right in saying Bamford's 27, 28 now?
I think he's only 26.
Is he young? He might be younger than what I thought, but I mean, Ollie Watkins, he's only 21?
Oh, I thought Watkins. Let's have a look. He's 25. It's Ollie Watkins. He's not a young lad.
Yeah, and Patrick Bamford will be 28 at the start of the next Premier League season. So there's only 3 years difference. So maybe it's not even that. So I am a bit perplexed as to why he's decided to do that. Maybe he does just think Patrick Bamford isn't going to get in above Kane at any point in the future.
Yeah. I mean, looking to, and I think I said this last time, between the midfielders and the forwards, I think this is a very good group of players. And again, I think from the forwards, there's some tough decisions to be made there. I think Watkins will be one of the ones that's cut. Does Mason Greenwood go?
No. As harsh as that seems for me to say it so quickly, I don't see how he can start over Jadon Sancho, how he can start over Sterling, how he can start over Grealish, how he can start over Foden, over Rashford. The only person in there as a winger that I think is comparable to is Saka, and I don't even think Saka will end up in that England side.
See, I think Saka will go because I think he also slots in as that left wing back. You know, something else he can do. So I think he might get in there with that versatility. But yeah, I do agree with you. Like, I don't think as a winger, I don't think Greenwood or Saka are really beating any of their competition in there. Obviously, it's interesting timing again with injuries. Grealish has played a game and a half also just before the end of the season, so he's clearly back fit. But taking off my Grealish is a diving, cheating bastard hat for a second, he is a very good player.
Yeah,
you know, it's a strong list. If I was being overly critical, I don't think Raheem Sterling's had his best season this year, but I think he'll feature again as another senior member of that team now, as someone who's got a lot of caps. Sancho, another good player. It's a list of very good players. Phil Foden, I think it's just a case of where do we fit him in. Like, I do think that he should be playing every game.
Well, my ideal start to our ideal starting front three would be Kane, Sancho, and I think at this point Grealish, because I think he offers something that no other winger does. Although he's not the quickest, I think he's got a bit more than what Rashford has in terms of tricks, skills, and passing. I would then have both Foden and Mount play as the midfielders, and I think at this point Declan Rice play as the holding DM.
I'm sorry, I think you meant Calvin Phillips there.
either Declan Rice or Calvin Phillips.
Thank you.
But I think that's way too attacking for a Southgate side. So it will be both Phillips and Rice, and it'll be a toss-up between which of Grealish, Foden, or Mount gets into the side.
Yeah. There's, like I say, there's a very good list of players there. I wouldn't defensively. I could cut a lot of those players. I'd happily trim some of the fat from that. I'd cut Aaron Ramsdale, call him back up, and then cut Aaron Ramsdale again, just to prove a point. And yeah, no, attack wise, I think we're in good shape. I very much worry about as if Harry Maguire is not fit.
Yeah, I said to Brad, who's been on the podcast before, when we were watching the Champions League match, I was saying I can really see John Stones not having a good game here and going into the Euros a bit shaky, a bit worried, and he didn't have the best of games. Oh, here we go. I've just got a notification up. Mauricio Pochettino has told PSG he wants to leave the club officially.
And the managerial merry-go-round continues.
So we'll see Pochettino back at Spurs at the start of next season.
Zidane to PSG.
He's going to go to France.
I know he's not got any ties there for his career, but yeah.
See, it's
just lazy on my part saying that he is French. They are a French team.
Originally, I thought maybe he would end up back at Juve if they didn't take Allegri. But
now
we'll see. We'll see. It'll be an interesting 2 weeks before the Euros to see what happens. I'm just going to play a quick clip that's going to show all the live podcasts on the Buzz, what their running order is, and make sure you don't miss any of them by subscribing to our YouTube, following us on Twitter, or liking our page on Facebook.
War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Bringing that to competitors. Till we see the confetti fall, be ready for war. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Tell them that's what we ready for. War. Bringing that to competitors. Till we see the confetti fall, be ready for war. Tell them I'm ready, any opponent. The crown heavy and every minute is chosen. A path only fit for kings, and you won't know what this court means. What did you enlist for? If it isn't getting more rings, then you gon' have to switch your team. Trust me, it gets more mean. I'm a nightmare going up against your dreams. First step is explosive like a bomb hit. Bet if I let it fly, I cannot miss. And you ain't got a chance at the top 10 when you getting clamped all night by your locksmith. On the block, throwing lobs to my top bigs. I'm a chef, no look, what's the top dish? Tie game, through the pressure as the clock ticks. Crossover, step back, hit a shot, switch.
Yeah, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and like our Facebook page at WTBdotcom, and make sure that you check out all those fantastic podcasts, and make sure that you check out the previous episodes that you don't miss any of them. Also, if you want to see any more of KC, he does a Leeds United based podcast at Mighty Whites Pod on Twitter. You can get that live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, or you can listen to it on audio file everywhere other than Acast.
Bugger Acast.
But yeah, as we mentioned last week, this will be the last one until the start of the Euros. The plan for Stand Your Ground after the Euros is the day after every England game. We'll do a podcast, run down what the England performances were like, and we'll go through the other results that have taken place between those fixtures, see where we are in the groups. Fingers crossed we could go further than what we did in 2018, and we might actually get to a final this year. Sky Bet have us as joint favourites alongside France, which I think is a bit optimistic.
Yeah, that French team is head and shoulders above us.
The team that France didn't take is head and shoulders above us.
Yeah, they have a... And I think if you just look at the under-21 squad they've picked for the knockout stages of the under-21s championships, isn't it? That is also, I think that team could be, it's at least making the knockout stages of this tournament.
Yeah, definitely. But we will be back after our first game against Croatia in the Euros. It's only 11 days now until we finally get to have Euro 2020 here in 2021. The nerves have already set in, but nothing is like watching knockout football when it comes to your nation, is it?
Oh yeah, love it. This will be the first time I'm in the country for a tournament as well for a little while, so I'm looking forward. I don't know if I mentioned at any point I used to live in America. Portland, Oregon, to be precise.
So that'll do us for this episode of Stand Your Ground. I've been joined by Casey of the Mighty Whites podcast.
Cheers for having us, mate.
And next time we're on, fingers crossed football will be coming home.
Yay.
Right, boys. In a bit.